Okay, I'd like to call the town of Rochester, September workshop meeting to order. If you could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have Deputy Clerk Ferrara. Could you do the roll call?
Sure thing. Councilwoman Alba.
Yeah.
Councilman Coleman.
Here.
Councilwoman Smith is absent. Councilman Nguyen.
Here.
Supervisor now.
I'm here. So the first item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda as prepared by the town supervisor. I would like to make that motion with the following amendment that we move the appointment of the planning and zoning clerk to after the executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Our first agenda item for tonight's workshop meeting is our public comment portion of the meeting. This is the portion of every meeting that we have reserved for the public to address the board. We have the same rules that we have the same recommendations we have for this that we do for our public hearings, which is that members of the public address the board and not engage in a debate or back and forth. We like to respond if there's any response. We reserve that for the next agenda item, which is town board member time. So we encourage members of the public who've commented to stick around at least for that part, because there might be a response to the comment. So with that, I will open the public comment portion up. Are there members of the public that would like to address the board?
Yeah, that's me. We need to submit these emails for the record. Because I'll be referring to them. My name is Becky Collins Brooks. You all know who I am. I'm here to follow up on an email that I sent to you on August 29th regarding the 55-mile-per-hour speed limit on Lucas Turnpike between the intersection of Route 209 and the Rosendale Marbletown Municipal Center. I'm providing you with copies of the emails that I received from two of the board members, Zali and Alexis. Thank you both for your response, in particular Zali, for understanding the specific nature of my request of you all. I want those replies to be reflected in the record, but I also want you to have them because my comment this evening is in response to those messages. I want to clarify my initial email, in particular the reference to the location of our home, which is also our place of business. We're an active working farm. We sell beef, chickens, eggs to the community, direct to customers right off the farm. It's busy. Soon we will open our creamery, and we will add raw milk to our product line, which will also increase customer traffic in and out of the farm lane. In addition to customer traffic, we lease land in our neighborhood for hay production. This means that we're required to enter and exit Lucas Turnpike on cabless tractors, pulling wide equipment from our driveway on the northbound lane. Sometimes we're in a pickup truck hauling a large stock trailer containing cattle. This is a 55-mile-per-hour zone. We are not simply pulling out onto the road in our car to run errands or do a school run. We are practicing the farmer's version of commerce, making hay to feed the animals who produce the food that we sell, and also hauling those animals. We're performing critical components of our business. The combination of reckless driving and the outrageous speed limit is impeding our ability to do so. We are literally taking our lives in our hands. I no longer ride a tractor to the fields in our neighborhood. I've been forbidden. Instead, I follow my husband in the pickup truck in an attempt to prevent someone from illegally passing him, especially while he's turning back into our driveway across traffic. It hasn't worked. Even our attempts to be more safe have put us at risk because cars going the speed limit pass both of us instead of only the tractor. One of the board responses mentions a possible correlation between a lower speed limit and the potential of greater land development. On the stretch of Lucas Turnpike I'm discussing, the density is impacting the safety of the road, not the other way around. I want to say that again. The density is impacting the safety of the road, not the other way around. In other words, it's too late for that discussion. It's moot. I'm frustrated by the board member's suggestion that this needs to be further studied by a consultant. Who better to ask than the people who actually live on this road? The study has already been done, over and over and over. Equally frustrating is the concept that action will take years. The conversation about reducing the speed limit on Lucas Turnpike has been ongoing for many, many years. Residents filed a petition with the state years ago that included signatures of every resident between the intersection of Route 209 and Kaiser Wright Road, County Route 6. Individuals have repeatedly written their county legislators and state representatives, myself included. Our state senator, who is a member of the state Senate's Transportation Committee, drove the entire section of Lucas in question and concurred that the speed limit is dangerous and too high. Advocacy by the people living and working on Lucas Turnpike has been happening continuously and over the long term. This is not something to be studied, looked at, researched, talked about further. The very last thing that should be done is spending more money to pay a consultant to discuss this further. It is something on which to take action. By not taking action, and in your case, action means advocating for this change. You are infringing on our right to operate our business safely. You are impeding commerce of the real farms who are used as selling points and tourist attractions for this town. I have full understanding that the decisive change I am speaking about is not in your power to make, nor is it even in the county's power to change. This is a change that will only happen at the state level. However, it would be nice for those who are required to utilize this roadway to pursue their businesses could have the support of your voices and your advocacy. Marbletown is also impacted by this too high speed limit. Perhaps instead of focusing on studying this issue, why not put together a joint task force from both towns to actually do the advocacy work necessary to impact real change? Leaders' voices matter. Your voices matter. The residents of Lucas Turnpike are actually begging you. We would really wish you would speak for us before someone is killed. And my husband has almost been killed numerous times in front of my own eyes. Thank you.
Do you have a copy of that you could submit to the town clerk for the record?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm just tired of being paid for.
Oh.
That's why I don't submit it, but I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Do we have anyone?
Oh, Ken, did you have a comment?
We can just, all right, so I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting. Our next portion of the our next agenda item is the town board member time. Any board members have anything?
I appreciate what Becky says, and I think that the speed limit in that section of 205 Lucas is high, considering the condition of the road and traffic there. I do have a friend who was killed on our section of road, and think that it should be a priority that we should look at. And I know that we have a lot of other roads in town where speed limits seem to be reviewed. I think that we should work on a small C comprehensive list of those areas and submit them all together. And I think Becky's idea to work in conjunction on Lucas with Marbletown makes a lot of sense.
Is that something that you'd be able to take the lead on, Zolly?
I could.
Can I just add a comment?
Mhm.
When you do apply or petition the DOT for a lower speed limit, you also need to have the county superintendent of highways. That's not
Okay.
what they're called, but he also has to join in that. So when you discover what roads you would like to work with, make sure that we're in touch with them.
Does that apply only to county roads or does that apply to all roads in town? Because
It,
Lucas is,
it's a county road. It applies to county, may also apply to town roads, but definitely applies to county.
And Mary Lou, can you come up with any suggestions to expedite this? Because it's been my understanding from other times when changes to speed limit come up, that that is the timeline that we're looking at. Is there anything that we can jiggle along the way to make that not turn into a discussion of years?
Well, I wish there was. I wouldn't say it's a discussion of years, but the law requires that after the county and the town put in the request to DOT, that DOT has to do an engineering study. And I can't say why they take so long. It may be that every town and county is doing it. And they have a lot of things before them, and it's just a matter of when our turn comes up. I'm not sure. I don't know their process, but it has always been many, many months.
And just the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to get the light at the corner of 209 and
guys, Rick.
no, that's not a light. That's stop signs. To get the light going into it just left my mind. The road going for town hall. From 209 where that light is by the liquor store.
Main Street.
It's Main Street. No wonder I couldn't remember it. It's such a hard street to remember. But anyway, that took almost a year. That was a state road.
Okay. Yeah, just to clarify my comments about that, it was not to push it down the road or make it seem like we were not advocating, like we have been, the number one thing that people have been asking us to address is traffic and the speeding and the reckless driving. And I apologize if that was, what you took out of my email to you, but it's something important to me too, as you know, like I'm right on 209. So, we're working with you, and if there's anything we can do to expedite this, and I was not like suggesting that we get a private consultant. That was the engineering study that I was referring to. So that's just the understanding of that.
I agree. I support speaking on behalf of residents when there are issues with roads. I apologize for not responding, Becky. I try to respond and
I really didn't expect responses.
things get lost. But yeah, I fully support putting together a list. I can help you. So I can do maps.
Yeah, I think it is a priority. If we could have a mini task force, just to get this moving and start to see things on the agenda, like that would be great. I currently don't have the ability to do that, so.
Could I add an addendum to my public comment? There was an aerial photo just taken of our farm this past weekend from someone who was flying in from Europe. And there were two things that jumped out of us. One was about the beauty of this area, but the second thing was the increase in density in our stretch of Lucas. It really is extremely dangerous, and the density has increased since whenever they did their last engineering study. It's very dangerous.
We ready to move on from town board member type? The light outside is very beautiful, just wanna let everyone know.
When it's working.
So, the next discussion item, so this, for this meeting, I put all of our discussion items first. And then all of our resolutions after that. So some of the discussion items relate to the resolutions. But I thought that would be easier, especially because I did invite members of the Housing Advisory Committee to join us for this discussion if you would like. Would you like to join us at the table? Okay.
Marty's coming and sure Ken is on standby.
Yeah. Who else is coming?
I think
Marty.
Oh, okay.
he
Yeah.
might have dropped off.
So I can kind of open it up, and you're welcome to sit in that chair too. Totally fine. We're okay. So I'll just open up the discussion a little with some framing. So there's a lot of things on the table right now, so I just wanted to kind of organize our thinking a little bit. Number one is what we're asked to do with the current law that we have, which they're in our last meeting document folder, and then I moved everything into this meetings document folder. I put all of the backup that we have regarding this issue. So I did have the local law digitally, the section of local law 6 of 2024, which is the short-term rental. And in that law, the town board sets the cap of non-owner occupied short-term rentals now by November 1st of each year, but the applications open on October 1st, so I wanted us to make a decision tonight. It tasks us with making that decision based off of the total number of residential dwelling units in the town of Rochester based on the final assessment roll. So it doesn't say what we're supposed to do with that. It just says based on that and considering housing, basically. So that is why I've been trying to prepare the board. No, come join us at the table. So that's what the board is tasked to do. One thing that I realized while doing this work is that we've never documented how we define the total number of residential dwelling units in the town of Rochester, and the number we've used has changed over the years. And I noticed a discrepancy between like what was in your letter and what I had thought it was, and then also in Comptroller March Gallagher, her number matched my number, so.
Did?
Yeah,
Oh.
so I felt good about
Yeah.
that.
The 4,200 number?
Yeah, so I wanted to first, I thought, well, not first, but one thing I would like the board to do is agree upon how we're doing that, and then I put a placeholder in the resolution that we could state the way in which we derive that number in our resolution so that it's documented, if that makes sense.
What was the methodology that you came up with that agrees with Rome's?
I had, I think the methodology was similar, but I think my brain worked differently than previous people, which is the assessor gave me all of the codes that include residential dwellings, and he told me what how many dwellings would be on those parcels, and I provided that to you guys like a month ago with it was a Excel spreadsheet with a multiplier, and then it summed them, and the number I came up with matched what was in the comptroller's report.
Does that include multifamily?
Yeah, so
Housing units in town?
so what I would say is that one thing linguistically that I've noticed is I think in our code, it's just residential units. Not all residential units in our code are eligible to be short-term rentals. So I think that might be part of the confusion, but the code doesn't tell us to do that. It tells us to consider all residential units.
And what is your number?
My number,
549.
Huh?
549.
right, and I think we need to take a couple,
3,549.
but
4,000.
that's March's. I think
Oh.
we need to take some of those codes out, which I think I had. So, well, let me just, so I would like us to define that together tonight. Then the second part of the discussion is what do we do about setting the cap? And so that's one of the reasons why we've invited the housing committee here, although if you want to weigh in on how we derive that number, that's fine. Now my computer is spinning. Do you have that Excel's?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I remember it being 1,300.
Was it again?
No, I just, I remember it. Well. The number in my spreadsheet is 3,549. The number that in the comptroller's report is 4,200
4,000.
and change, yeah,
4,200.
yeah, 4,200.
4,002 what?
240.
The question. Seasonal residential, there was one code. These were all, I mean, I feel, I guess, comfortable with the numbers in my spreadsheet because I took them directly from the role that the assessor gave me and all the codes that he said included housing. I don't know, the methodology for how the comptroller arrived at that number is not in that report, so.
And what is the date of that assessment?
That's the,
One?
yeah,
The assessment. Oh,
that's the final roll,
Which would be as of
July 1st. Yeah. So.
and what is the difference in the codes used? 3549 and 4240?
I don't know. She didn't say in her report how she landed on it. In the past, we've used like 2,300 as our, in the past, that's how we've gotten to that. But I think that's because we were only using the types of the one
One
family.
and two families.
Yeah. I don't, does that sound right?
I don't remember a number that low.
What,
1,000.
okay,
It's we've been on.
or was it the same number that hold on, let me just pull up all my, maybe I've looked at too many things today. There was something in here where you guys, maybe it was last.
Maybe last year's report. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, last year's report had the number that you guys were going off of. And it had a 40 SCRs was the. Okay, you had 3,321. And we're recommending a 1% threshold, which would be 33. I think that's what I was remembering. And I have 3,549.
And it's back.
Right, okay.
And how many permits are in place as of today?
Well, here's
There you go.
the complicated conversation I would like to have. The number of permits that are in place, in our SharePoint folder, I shared the SCR permit data with the board. And the number of permits that we have roughly, now some of these didn't pass inspection, but it goes to 145, 144 in that spreadsheet. There's 5, there's 12 that were denied, so that would be.
130,
12 of the 144?
Yeah,
so
so,
132.
yeah, 132, that includes owner occupied. Now, we've been talking about. I know this wasn't part of the comment from the Housing Advisory Committee. We've been talking about getting to this 2% threshold. But that, from Housing Smart perspective, is all short-term rentals. So,
So
well, that's what it said.
Really? I mean, our understanding is that is non-owner occupied.
Well, okay, I wanted to ask you guys about it because when I read it, it did not make that
It
distinction.
did not make that distinction.
so
So I thought it was worth, and neither does this data.
And it doesn't define owner occupied either.
No, in fact,
That's up to the towns.
yeah, but one of the towns that's above the 2% threshold. In the county's report, I noticed is not part of the program. And they limit. There's like this weird, you either limit to owner occupied. Or you set a cap for the total.
Total, both combined.
Yeah. Right, I believe that's the way it's phrased. When I read that today, I was like, oh, it's not clear that it's just non-owner occupied. So I just wanted to bring that.
So another question, of the 132 that are valid permits now, how many of them is that dwelling units? Or in other words, can there be like 2 dwelling units in a single property?
So every rental is its own permit. So of the,
Every rental unit is.
yeah, so some people that had multiple units were grandfathered in. So some properties list 4 times.
And that grandfathering will expire as those roll off.
No, it doesn't expire. It only expires if they don't reapply.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if they sell the property and it doesn't. the property
Correct.
doesn't transfer.
Yeah.
So if it rolls off, there's natural course, however that might be.
Yeah.
Do we know how many specific separate properties have permits as opposed to how many units? Like if there's one property that has 5 units on it, do we know how many separate properties there are total?
If you give me a sec, I can filter my spreadsheet. But you guys can keep talking. I have to.
Because I think that we should compare like to like.
I'm
And
not sure where you're at.
so if we're counting 132 permits in town, and the only thing that's affected, and say 10 of those units, 10 of those accommodations are on a single property. We're not comparing like to like, because if that property were to be sold, it would only create potentially one single family dwelling.
But do we have single parcels that have multiple
It's-
STRs on them?
We have a few.
Yes.
It's not supposed to be, but it's also possible that one could be like there could be 2 houses on a property,
ADU.
and so it would. Any,
Well, not necessarily,
Or like
you have 2
upstairs,
separate
downstairs,
houses,
like the basement unit, the loft.
or 2 separate houses on the same unit. That 280. So. designation.
but I also think
Do we not have it one per? parcel?
we did, but these were grandfathered in. So no one who's getting a new permit
Would be able to do that.
would be able to do that, but a few parcels have 2.
Because, I mean, if we step back, what we're trying to do is make sure that, or is to find the balance between houses and residential units that can be used as permanent accommodation versus those that are just additional because somebody happens to have a big property with, 5 a bungalow colony, or not a bungalow colony, a house that has with the potential for 3 rental units on it.
I'm sorry, I don't
No,
follow.
if I may though, it hasn't been brought up. Virtually everyone on our committee knows of several unregistered units.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That's a different matter.
yes, I mean, these numbers are, what you're saying is certainly,
But I
The
mean,
beginning,
we're talking
but-
about 2 different things. I mean,
yeah, but
the first thing is to set a cap, and the second one is
Right.
to enforce and make sure those units are registered.
So there's. 129 when I filter for,
129 properties.
yes. When so 132 was our. Permit number, and 129 when I filter for individual
So it's
Unique address.
unique addresses, right?
range between 3 and 12, if you count them, those 12 that were not renewed.
I'm seeing more than that in the sheet, I thought.
Well, I'm
Are you
reviewing.
only looking at non versus owner occupied?
Nope.
No, I was looking at all of them, and I saw like 11 matching site location addresses. Some of them might be the same SBL. I thought I saw 10 or 11 that were same.
Well, I did a pivot table by site location.
Tell me more.
But you're right. I mean, maybe I could do by SPL instead,
Show a pivot on site location.
but that's what I came up with. So for SBL, 127 minus 4 is 123.
What's the 4?
Oh, sorry, it's just the row that the pivot table started on.
Oh,
123. That would be, there's 9. But also, I guess. The granular nature of what you're talking about, we could. Some people are, when they're owner occupied. How many of them is it a room? So like, they would never, like, it wouldn't, they're still occupying their home. Some people are part-time here and part-time. So they're renting it out for part of the year and then living in it for the other part. So I guess to me, what the law is asking us to do is look at the total number of residential units and setting a cap of non-owner occupied based on that number. So the question, to me, there's like a couple questions. One is, are we trying to work towards this 2% number? Or is working towards that 2% number simply legislatively? Or, for housing smart, like, are they happy if we do that legislatively? But it's not necessarily true.
Actualized?
Yeah. Because it would be really hard for us we'd have to have a plan for those to sunset.
so that's a question, I think, to Kai.
Yeah.
and that's part of our letter, that the whole law really needs to be revisited. A lot's happened since it was first passed. Some towns may totally phase out short-term rentals. Others are putting caps on the number of days per year. And what other members of our committee discovered is the whole distinction between owner occupied and non-owner occupied may be on its way out. It may not be constitutional. And Mary Lou knows more, but
At the Ken's- state level?
I'm sorry?
At the state, federal.
Federal.
Well, it was the city of New Orleans was sued, and they on the appeal, they lost, and they had to they had to change the distinction. Now, it's not, it doesn't apply to us now, but Ken has talked to one of the attorneys who advises all the Association of Town Attorneys, who's saying you better look very carefully, maybe not do this. So that would make a whole different conversation for what the law, could be amended to include.
You know what the case was?
I'm
The
sorry,
New Orleans case was?
I can forward it to the board.
it's, yeah, it's, here's, I got it somewhere here. Right there. We as a committee have considered owner occupied as a special status, really. But it may not, we may have to rethink it. And part of our job this year, we hope, will be to go through the law. We're gonna review every other town in Ulster County and see what might make sense to bring back to you as alternatives.
So yeah, that was one of the philosophical conundrums that I found myself in, is the minimum criteria for short-term rental regulations to participate in the housing smart is limit short-term rentals to owner occupied, or limit the total number of short-term rentals to 2% of the total housing stock. So currently we have 132 compliant total, and 2% of our total housing stock is 70. So
And we have 200 unregistered. Potentially.
Of the 132, do you know how many of those are owner occupied versus?
yes. We have 67 non-owner occupied.
My pivot table got 12.
And how do you calculate the 200?
The Granicus report, the Granicus software that would be.
March's report said it's a total of 238.
Total
Mhm.
registered and unregistered, so that's a difference of 100-ish. Still, I mean, it's a meaningful amount.
Yeah.
But then if that. Hundred. I guess my biggest concern is sort of. The investor market where people are coming in to buy and. Put them into Airbnb service, which model doesn't make sense economically anymore. At all. And I heard from building inspectors and people in this town and others, that. Not only does not make sense for new ones, people who have them are getting rid of them, because they just don't make economic sense at all anymore. And so what we're trying to, I mean, if we step back, what we're trying to do is trying to take away the economic incentive to take housing units out of availability on long-term in favor of short-term rentals, right? And then you have the varying degrees of usage. You have some people who rent out a couple of rooms in their homes, and live there. You have others who rent it out, 4 or 5 weekends a year, 5, 6 weekends a year, and still have that listing. And then you have others who the Airbnb rental income makes a material difference in their ability to afford the property. Which you could make the argument that takes it away from full-time rental for full-time permanent usage.
If it's owner occupied, it doesn't. Owner occupied units for seniors.
No, what I'm saying is if I'm coming here and I want to buy a weekend place and I can't swing it.
Yes.
Without
Oh,
taking-
That is, yeah, that's a selling point.
And I rent it out, and so if I say, oh, I could rent it out 4 months a year, and that'll make the difference between me being able to afford this property and not being able to afford that. I would classify it, I mean, I'm looking at it at different gradients in terms of the economic displacement. And where the revenue derived from that investment in a home makes a difference between somebody buying it and not being able to buy it. So
Yeah, I still don't know if that's, I mean, that just means people with means would potentially be buying as opposed to somebody who couldn't swing it on their own.
but they did.
But it's their second home if they're renting it out.
I mean, we're talking about people that don't have first homes. you
Yeah,
know.
that was my argument to the person who sells real estate for Airbnb.
I guess my point is it's not gonna necessarily take pressure off the housing market.
No, it would, because what you're doing is if you're making it affordable for somebody to have it as a second home that they otherwise couldn't afford, then they're not gonna buy it as a second home.
I guess my point is somebody else who can do it, who can swing it
It's
without.
not a
being-
primary occupant.
Might buy it as a second.
But also part of what takes pressure off of the housing market is more availability of housing units. So it's not a vacuum.
I guess my point is you get there by lowering the number of units. Because if it's a second home, it's still not available for a local person to buy.
I think, I mean, we don't, I guess,
But you're-
we're not scientists,
You're-
but if you're,
Availability.
yeah, you're increasing the availability of supply. One of the reasons why the cost is so high is because demand outpaces
Supply.
supply. So if we're making it harder,
You're making it harder for weekenders to buy. They're not gonna buy, which means that you're creating some flex where non-weekenders.
that's my, I mean, I think that it's a compelling argument.
I mean, like if you're in the Hamptons, you can pay your entire carrying cost for a year by renting it out for 6 weeks a year. And there are a lot of people who wouldn't be able to afford that if they couldn't rent it out for that 6 months a year. Which would means that if they can't afford to buy it, there's more availability in the marketplace for full-time residents.
So what are you proposing to?
I'm not proposing anything. I'm just pointing out the different gradients of economic incentive and disincentive. And how that should play a factor in how we look at the law going forward. So it's sort of what we're trying to avoid, we have to be cognizant of the displacement that is avoided by people being able to put their house out on the short-term market.
So. I think at the end of our discussion, we should agree upon how we want to move forward. I wanted to hear a little bit from the Housing Advisory Committee on your recommendation and then possibly have a discussion with you about some of the counterpoints to see from your perspective, like how you would respond to that, if that's okay, if you're happy to engage in that kind of discussion with us. So, you want to summarize? Just,
Specifically regarding the recommendation or?
I think both, and I'll say I've shared with the board the 2024 and the 2025. And the public folder that's linked on this agenda, the 2025 letter is in there, just for the public to know.
Can I ask a quick question just to get just a sense of these properties? Has anybody done an evaluation on these in terms of, are they at median, are they above? Are these like properties that if they were on the market that would even be like within reach for people to
I mean,
buy?
I don't think anyone on our committee has analyzed that through that lens,
Okay.
necessarily.
Like assessed value, you're saying?
Yeah, just to get an idea of like, are these like super expensive properties that are kind of always gonna be unattainable, or are, they're little bungalows on 2 acres that would be, prime?
It's a good question. I don't.
I think there's a mix because I look at what the Airbnb list.
Yeah, that's one of the predominant.
I mean, I think that. I guess I couldn't make a generalization, but
I mean, anecdotally in my neighborhood, I know it's this stuff that's close to me, it's pretty attainable.
Pretty modest.
Yeah. I mean, when people flip them, of course, it's
Yeah.
a different, they become less attainable.
Yeah, and they do, in the comptroller report, there's some really interesting data for the county, that it's mostly 1 and 2. It's like 7% of the 1 and 2 family homes or something.
In the whole county. Or
Is
in our
that it?
town.
Or of studios and 1 bedrooms, 7% of the all stock. Which I was like, wow. And then it was like a really high percent of all the 5-bedroom homes.
1 bedroom or studio, 70%.
And I think it was 5% of 5-bedroom or more are short-term rentals, which I thought was really interesting. Like, that's like really big contrast. So I think that would be an interesting thing, and we could have somebody do that. So I guess just to open it up, could you summarize your thinking behind the recommendations?
Well, I think that the predominant overarching thing is that we did not feel like it was prudent to make a recommendation to you guys that was rooted in the cap number because of this appellate legislation, or excuse me, appellate case. It's in the appellate court, right?
It was a decision.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a decision.
I thought then it was getting considered in like a.
No, it already, yeah.
But that wouldn't apply to this,
It's Fifth Circuit, and the only thing would be the Supreme Court after that.
which isn't gonna,
Well,
Yeah,
because it's interstate commerce.
right. It would be a violation of interstate commerce. We have different opinions on that, but it is a federal appeals court case.
But
As
it seems the distinction there is when they defined owner occupied, they meant within the state, and so they were excluding people from outside the state, which is not the case here.
And, it does not apply to us. So, there could be years down the road if there were litigation. We don't know.
you know, if that's,
Yeah.
if it's
Oh,
appealed that to the Supreme Court,
I'm sorry.
No,
if there's a case pending to go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
no,
It was the district court decision. And now Airbnb says they are going to appeal to the Fifth Circuit. In
Okay.
2022, the Fifth Circuit said you can't, under Commerce Clause, you can't rule out non-owner occupied. You have to open it up to everyone. So now this one is going to go to the Fifth Circuit. That's what they've said in the past. We'll see what happens this time. But yeah, and we discussed that. When did we pass this law? Was it 2022? Because I remember when did we pass it? I remember discussing
2021.
it.
2021.
Okay. All right. Maybe we discussed it afterward at one of,
Just
one of
Mary
the
Lou,
other iterations.
if I can, just one point of clarification. What happened was, after the decision, the city of New Orleans rewrote their law so that there is no longer any owner occupied requirement. Instead, they have an operator requirement, and in the district court found that that was sufficient. However, their operator requirement was so strict that it seemed to me the Fifth Circuit thought even that might go too far. For instance, they require that the owner actually be present on the premises anytime a part of the premises is rented out for a short-term rental. So the example that came up in the oral argument was, if you had, let's say, a carriage house or a garage, you would have to be in your home and maybe even in the carriage house. So the city of New Orleans didn't even try to go to the Supreme Court. They
But
never.
That's the
Right.
same, that's the same regulation in New York City, though.
It is, and it's a good question. Not only is it the same regulation as New York City, but a substantial number of towns in our county are all premised on the ability to make this distinction. So, I mean, I defer to Mary Lou on her judgment as to, what the future might hold, but one alternative.
Have you seen the courts lately?
Well,
I wouldn't
One-
touch that with a 10-foot pole.
right, I mean, what you could do, and there is a vehicle by which a town can request from the state attorney general a legal opinion, but I'm not suggesting that that would be the right thing
Yeah,
to do here.
Well, I think that the Attorney General's opinion would be, that's out there, but it doesn't apply to us at this time.
Maybe,
But
you might.
there again, it's sort of, we can go in good faith and make whatever or you can make whatever recommendations you want. And it can be adopted into law, and if it's overturned by the court, we can always amend the law.
Right, and that's what we had said a couple of years
Which is what
ago,
New York- which is
when
what New
this
Orleans
came
done.
down.
And there are other things that we
So-
say in the letter.
So my point is, don't be afraid of what a future court might rule, 5 years down the road. As long as you're being equitable in your treatment.
In our letter, we also talk about enforcement.
Yes.
Which is
It's all different.
a big deal, and we can deal with that this year, certainly.
Well, except it's not that, I mean, it's related, right?
Well-
So if there's better enforcement, it might be a deterrent for people investing in STRs. It's a pain in the butt to deal with not doing things by the books or whatever. So I mean, it is kind of intertwined. I think that we're interested in getting the Housing Smarts certification, and as far as whether or not legislative intent it satisfies the requirement, we'd have to punt that to the county and ask the planning department about that, but I mean, if we're gonna, I mean, I think, Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a group, we recommend sticking to the 2% goal.
How would we do that? I guess, given what I brought up, how would we even do that?
Because we're already over it. Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
by
Maintain the
double.
status quo, what Mary Lou determines. Those who are grandfathered in, those who have a legitimate claim to keep their permits, and so, assuming they reapply, do it for this year, and by next year, we may have a whole, different take on the situation. We may have the statute amended. And we may have better, and better enforcement, and then we'll know really what we're talking about.
2% is about 70.
84.8,
Hey, what numbers are you using?
2% of 4240.
And then 2% of 35.
Which number are we using?
Well, we should talk about next steps. I just wrote to the comptroller to see how they got their number.
That's 71 for.
Yeah.
I mean,
I rounded down because,
one other thing concerning enforcement, some information from other towns have raised their fees to offset the cost of an additional part-time employee to do the enforcement. You can't all of a sudden, lay a new burden on staff that are already very busy possibly. And the fees generated should be able to sustain the necessary investigation.
So,
permit fees, not taxes.
Permit fees.
yeah,
And penalties for violations.
well, that
Oh,
is up to the
penalties.
court. Yeah.
That's up to the court, and permit fees can only be used to cover the cost of the permitting to the
Okay.
town.
So yeah, that's what
And
I,
enforcement,
that's not what Kai said. but-
and enforcement,
And Mary Lou, they can't be used to offset the cost of additional staff?
If you need additional staff to process these permits and do the fire inspections, then they can. But I don't know if I do not know that it can be used to investigate other short-term rentals that may be
Unregistered.
violation. Right,
Oh.
unregistered.
fines can,
yeah, but
fines for non-compliance can be.
But we don't control whether fines get applied.
How many cases have gone to the court in the last year or two?
I don't think any have, based
Yeah.
on what I know.
Mhm.
So what I was gonna say though about that issue is that we would have to hire an additional staff person just for short-term rentals because the fire inspection, just processing them alone takes a lot of staff hours. So that's just something we would need a dedicated short-term rental enforcement staff member, which some towns have done. It is, but I think from the perspective of the office, they would much rather have more permits available so that they have people registered and they're doing safety inspections, because they know that they can't catch everyone.
Instead of operating.
Yeah. So, that was,
But at the same time, if we're not even trying to pursue those people who are operating legally, there's no disincentive for them.
yeah,
To just continue.
right. But I think we.
Incentive for them to discontinue.
That one of the things that came up in the comptroller's report, which has come up in the past, is that the Granicus site, which is the tool to like find non-compliance, it's very challenging to use. Now we are trying to like get that up and running, but it isn't like there's some challenges to how the data is organized. It's not broken down by town, for example. And some of it's turned out is inaccurate. So I think there's just like, in terms of like, how do you find, I know that there have been many rentals that have been cited. I think that's one of the issues too, because oftentimes it's individuals that don't live here. So serving that is challenging when you can't reach the owner. So I know those are some of the issues that have come up in the past. I mean, we definitely we can try to focus on enforcement. And that is definitely something we should talk about for the budget. But I don't know that if we have the same pool of permit holders increasing, we're currently relying on that income to process those permits. So even doing an increase on that would not pay for that additional staff person. Because we did raise the permit fees. We've talked about raising them for 2026 as well, but go ahead, Ken.
Well, I know, I appreciate, I think you're kind of in a bind in a way, because if you increase enforcement to try and bring non-complying, non-owner occupied units into registering and you don't have slots, what are you going to do with them? In other words, in the ideal scenario, you would have open slots where you could say, all right, you've been caught. You're going to play by the rules now, either pay back fines for operating without it, but now you can. But if the gates are closed, so to speak, because all the slots are taking under the existing cap, I've been just struggling with how one would approach that. That's why, the
Well,
only,
I'm sorry, finish up, Ken. I'm sorry. I thought you
no,
were done.
no, that's why I really think you have to take a fresh look at the whole law and how you manage this interim period is, well, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I defer to Mary Lou and the
Well,
rest of you to figure that out.
the way I look at it, and of course, this would be up to the town board and the building department. If someone is not complying with the law and there's no more slots, if we have to, we go to Supreme Court to get them shut down. We don't just go for fines. We shut them down, and then you have another house available, potentially.
Yeah,
But
potentially.
It's like anything else when if somebody's operating a hotel, right? And they don't have their special use permit or their building permits or whatever we need. We would ask the court to shut them down.
We is the town justices or?
No,
No,
no, the
we-
town justices can only set fines.
that
They
would
don't
be
they don't have authority. That would have to go to county or Supreme Court in Kingston.
The code enforcement would identify somehow, and the town board would have to authorize litigation.
Just like we did with the litigation we're currently in on a whole different matter.
So where's the cap now?
Right now, we've had 0 permits available. The previous year, I think we had 20 or 5. I'm trying to remember what we did for 2024. Or for 2023 for 2020.
Non-owner occupied?
How many non-owner occupied do we currently have? 67.
And was that what the cap was?
What we know, there is a little bit of attrition. Last year there were a few more. I think it was maybe 71.
The exact number.
71, 2%.
The one thing that we had considered last year that we thought was too complicated was that we set the cap at what it is currently, but if someone doesn't renew, that permit would be available. So that's, you know, we're talking about like probably 4 or 5 permits, not anything significant. It would just be, so I know that's not what you're recommending, but that was something we considered last year.
So those 12 units that didn't pass for inspection, are those permits retired, or are they?
Those would, some of them are owner occupied, so I think in that case, they could reapply. Depending on where we set the cap, the ones that, those might not be able, yeah.
And it's a 2-year permit, right?
Yeah. But you pay annually for the inspection. So if we were to do keep it the same number, then it kind of doesn't matter how many housing units, like whether our number matches the comptroller's number. Right, because we're just saying no new permits. We could say 0, which is what we did last year, which means if people drop out, that permit doesn't then become available again.
Until we get below the 2% threshold.
Well,
Or
depending on what we were to do in the future, right?
And are we tracking sales of units?
With, no,
'Cause
I
know
don't
that
think,
some units have sold, or some places have sold, and the new owners are out on the Airbnb pool.
okay. Do you know, does the Granicus dashboard track that?
we actually know very little about
Okay.
how it,
Okay,
the mechanisms embedded in it. We offered to
Yes.
learn it.
Yes.
I know that we're not allowed.
well, we can follow up with that too.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to make is that, so in the comptroller's report, there's 2 things. One, you're required to register with the county, and that's so you can pay taxes. The town gets some of that, right? So I think that's just as the chief fiscal officer, there are units that are registered with the county that are paying the taxes that do not have permits. Because there's like 200 in the
Right.
maybe Rochester.
That's what my 200 number is.
Yeah,
So they have the certificate of authority.
yeah,
But they didn't have an inspection, they don't have a permit with the town.
correct.
Oh.
Yes, Ken?
Well,
I guess that's a
I mean, that's
starting point of who we can go after.
exactly. And the other thing is, perhaps this is something that if other towns are in the same position, the county could be a little bit, and I thought from our discussion with Kai, they were trying to figure out how to be more helpful to the towns. But that seems like an easy, warning letter. You just do a sort by address and send them out a warning letter, a cease and desist, or, you're going to go to court. And, perhaps Mary Lou would know, but it would seem that the county could at least take some steps as the delegee of the town to maybe even, help get out those, warning letters or something. Since, I mean, there's a kind of conflict of interest a little
I was
bit
gonna say,
because
yeah, I don't know that they do that because,
they want the money.
well, no,
Well,
they
don't have
only
any-
control county permits. If they have they're registered with the county, they're not in violation of any county statute.
And you only get. the permit.
It's a town statute, so we'd have to,
I mean, the
do it.
county authorization once, it's not an annual.
right.
And that data is in Granicus, so they did say, I just had a presentation about this report and Granicus at the last Supervisors Association meeting, so this is the only reason why I know these things is, that the Granicus dashboard has that information, but they're like, yeah, it's up to the towns to then put in your own, who has permits,
Right.
right? And the county won't respond to that, but the county is working on an enforcement mechanism for
Okay.
their registry. So they will be enforcing that, and that could have an impact on us.
Well, that'll be the universe of Airbnbs in town or short-term rentals in town.
Correct. And then also there is a small Venn diagram enforcement support in that there are theoretically 38 Airbnb or short-term rentals operating in our town that neither have a permit nor are registered with the county. So those would be ones that the county could also assist with, right?
We could do it together. We could bring those actions together. Words are gonna love us.
So the question is, do we lower the number to 67? Or however many non-owner occupied we have, or do we hold at 71 if that's what the number was? And then whatever weirdness about setting it at 0.
What would be, or increase it to 82 based on
Times
the
the 4,000.
based on the 45.
Well, I guess part of where I'm at though, just again, I just feel like at this point, the 2% on the non-owner occupied is a little meaningless because it's my understanding now that the 2% recommendation is for all. So like, I mean, we can do whatever you guys want with that, but that was sort of the aha moment that I had, was like, oh, the recommendations that the county has is like not what we're doing. So they're saying either limit all short-term rentals to 2% or limit it to only owner occupied.
Yeah.
Which
Oh,
we're
not-
neither.
non-owner. Wait.
So
In which case you have to get rid of approximately 65
yes,
non-owner.
yeah. So on the,
Just did that,
Or
man.
2% at the top.
yeah, that's exactly what it says on the county
I'm a
website.
bank.
Yeah.
And a complicating issue to me here is that everybody gets all grandfathered in under the existing law, which I see as a real problem. Because if anything has to be changed in the future, you're kind of, you're in a position where if you expand the base of non-owner occupied units, or any units really, you're creating more expectations that people are going to be grandfathered in. I guess if you rewrite the law, you could undo that, but it's it's not a favored process, I don't think, in the law to remove rights that have once been grandfathered. Mary Lou, can it be
I,
done?
I think that they would have a very good claim for a taking, that we've taken their property.
Yeah. So so
I
so
think they'd
anyway,
have a good,
yeah. Anyway, to me, that speaks to me to given the various issues that are afloat, being very conservative in approaching the expansion. That's just my own thought, and I think that was partially why our recommendation was not to expand the number of units. But I recognize, I mean, the ideal situation for enforcement would be if you could send people a letter again and kind of create an amnesty to bring them into compliance. But if you don't have any units, slots available, um, that's a bit more of a challenge.
and you're way, way, way more than the 2%. We're almost,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
already far above it. And then if you allowed them to come into compliance and gave them permits, we're never getting to the 2%. It's going to be ridiculously difficult anyway.
I know. Today I was
Yeah.
like, I'm pushing a rock up a hill. That's exactly how I felt, Ken.
Well, and the other thing is the math behind whether or not any of this has anything to do with the market prices of homes is, let's say, debatable. I mean, Airbnb will come out with a study and they have, that shows that efforts to control the development of STRs have not really succeeded in lowering the prices of homes or increasing availability. Now, it's very hard to do that.
But you also look at it from a macroeconomic, a town-wide macroeconomic state. There are no places, I mean, there are very few places to stay in town. Because the granite's been pulled out of service. Oh, has it? Is it still a thing? Whatever.
Stay there.
I would, I don't know. The place across the street from Kelders has been pulled out of service. So where else is there to stay? I mean,
Really hot places.
yeah, in this.
Although occupancy rates are dropping, right? So that's the other
For
thing.
Airbnbs
Yeah,
too, which is what's
yeah.
driving the withdrawal of a lot of.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
what's making me think doing something really egregious in one way or another is not smart. Should just kind of maintain the status quo
I
and
think
see how it shapes out.
I think we should monitor what it is, but pay attention to it on a granular basis, so we have consistent data points.
So what would you guys like to do in terms of setting the cap? You wanna go around the room?
I think we should set it at 71, just hold it at 71. If that's what the number was, but I don't know how we do that in terms of,
Hold it at 71 or hold it at 2%.
well, I don't want to get into, we're not at 2%. I think we established that we're not at 2%,
But
but
we're not at 71 either.
well, that's 2% of 3,549.
Right.
In other words, I don't think we should increase the number from the amount of permits for non-owner occupied that we had last year. I also don't think we should lower it to the 67 or whatever. For the drop.
Right.
Because then maybe we can capture a few of the people like Ken's referring to.
Is there any way that we could just rejig it so that people that have multiple units on one property could be under one? And then that would kind of allow us a couple extra permits for people coming into compliance.
We'd have to change the law. We wouldn't be able to do
No,
that.
I'm just like thinking if we are changing the law, like how we could.
I think the best thing to do is not to do anything in terms of changing. Yeah.
Like, you don't wanna make a decision tonight?
Hold it.
Or hold it at 0.
Hold it at whatever it was last year.
This would go from
December.
December to next December. So
Right.
that if you guys opted to revisit the law in 2026. That would
Yeah, we would be able to,
It
yeah.
would, yeah.
So with that, are you saying set it at 0? So that if there are drop-offs, the number keeps reducing? Or set it at 67, and then if people don't renew, they could open that spot up?
67 for non-owner occupied. I would go to the 71 that we had. And just leave it there for.
At the start of the year, you mean? Yeah.
Are there people in queue to get permits?
I don't know that they kept I know that they turn people away, and people have been calling me, asking me what we're gonna set the cap at. Like,
How many calls?
I've gotten referred, like 3 people that left me voicemails.
And do you know if they're existing homeowners or if they're people who are looking to buy?
These are non-owner occupied. We definitely get real estate agents calling us, every other week. Wanting to know if we're gonna have new permits available. So that they know how to tell their clients about it, so. But the building department would get more of those calls, I've told them if they need to, they can always have someone call me.
Because they weren't, if I recall, Claire spoke to Alyssa at one point, and they were like not interested in maintaining a wait list or a queue of interested parties, is my understanding, because of just
That was last year,
Oh.
yeah, that was last year, that we had that discussion about that, yeah.
Do you think that's changed at all?
Yeah, I think that can change. I think we can make that change.
Where are all these properties listed? Because I go onto the big sites and I don't see a lot of stock.
The STRs? Well, we refer to VRBO as an Airbnb
Yeah.
listings project, is another one, which is more. It's rooted in like creatives who wanna look for a rental, it's a little more, underground, I mean, it's online, but,
Right, yeah.
yeah, those are like the 3 major.
Okay, well, I know it's not exactly what the Housing Advisory Committee recommended, but it sounds like the board wants to say however many permits we had at the start of the year, that's the number of permits. And if someone
Well,
drops,
and I say that with 2 things in mind. We're already over, depending on what metric you use, we already have too many permitted units in town. But also to reduce the number of authorized permits now is kind of counter to what Ken is saying, which is where you have people who are trying to comply and they can't comply, they're sort of between a rock and a hard place. So that's an argument, it's reducing from 71 to 67.
and I think just based on this spreadsheet, it looks like there were 70. At the start of the year.
I guess I'd just be open to wiggle room if that would allow people they're trying to get into compliance, commit compliance, rather than somebody coming in and just swooping it up opportunistically. I don't know how we do that, but that would be my preference.
Yeah, I think that would be hard when we're talking about 100 non-compliant and then 5 permits. I think that would be a challenge. I mean, I think we can.
But then are we talking about 100 forced sales in the coming years? And it's just a boondoggle.
Well, I mean.
It's also,
there-
go ahead.
If I could, I mean, there is something a little counterintuitive about allowing, if you will, a scofflaw who perhaps has been operating outside the parameters of registration for many years, to take advantage of one of the few permits that might be available versus somebody who's coming in, from the get-go, willing to play by the rules. I'm not, there perhaps is no clear right answer, but it's just difficult, and both things I think are worth considering. So, I don't know if it's first come, first serve, if there are 5, hot items and whoever calls and gets through, gets their permit in, or do you want to have it on, submit applications by and have a lottery? Some of us on the committee thought that would be the most fair system, would be eventually to have somewhat of a lottery for this scarce resource. And the last thing I want to say is,
An auction.
well, there you go. There's my free market friend. The last thing I would suggest is what about, are there any of these units that are being underutilized? In the sense, Aaron, like you were saying, they do provide an economic, and I think Zali was saying the same thing. The Airbnbs do contribute to the local economy. There's no, there is no denying that on certain levels. And so if you have somebody who has a permit who's never using the space for an Airbnb.
Well, I
it
mean,
seems-
one of the ways of looking at that is looking at the county tax revenue.
Exactly, exactly.
Do we
Yeah.
know how many are just listed or just not even being listed and just have the,
Squatting.
how many?
No, I meant
No.
squatting on the
Right,
permit.
I think there is not an insignificant number of the grandfather ones that because they know.
Right, that's what I was saying, because I don't
Yeah.
even see them listed, that like, I don't know,
Right,
is
right.
there something we can do on that, like use it or lose it?
I don't know how I mean, that,
No, I mean, it's something we can look at when we look forward, but I mean, it's one of the criteria of looking at it, because if you have I mean, and even with non-compliance, if it's somebody who's listed on one of these sites and they rent it out 2 weekends a year, I mean, do we really care?
Yeah,
As opposed to somebody who's renting it out every weekend. And one of the ways of looking at that on the first pass would be looking at the sales tax revenue from the county on those, on the greater universe of numbers. And trying to drill down on a granular basis to specific properties.
Well,
so to stay on schedule, I think we can wrap up this discussion. It sounds like we are somewhat in our resolution, it sounds like we want to say 70. Right?
Is 70 only we're outstanding
70 is how many we had at the start of the year.
as of January 1? Because if you take the
And to me, the reason to do that is just to maintain the status quo,
Yeah.
not to be under any kind of percentage or.
I support that.
And we'll want to phrase it so new permits can only be issued if, It's-
like not to exceed 70 total.
yeah, including currently operational. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your work and the dedication.
I hope we don't promise much this year, but we really do want to focus on.
We're gonna have 2 things though. 2 big housing things. So,
In this tonight or?
well, no, the real estate transfer tax
Right.
next year,
Yeah.
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 And yes, tonight, I mean, do you guys support the tax exemption for ADUs?
We did.
Okay.
We do.
We will, depending on when we we'll definitely refer that.
And we do actually would like to continue the conversation. Best board. Once it's enacted. And hopefully if Rosendale and Town also enact it.
To follow up with the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the
like-
thing
that's
that's gonna
like
have the
coach,
biggest impact.
You know,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Oh,
night.
Right.
Great, health insurance plan. That's our next.
Oof.
So my recommendation is that we stick with the same plan. Because I feel like any change would be disruptive to our staff. We did have our broker. I have printouts if anyone wants to look at them of what I shared with you. So the plan that the renewal plan is the second column. It's going up 6%.
Right, I think it's on the right hand side.
Can we focus on health insurance plans?
Rentals.
I agree with keeping the same plan. There were a couple others where they have lower deductibles, but higher,
Premium.
well, higher premium, and then they don't cover as much once you hit the deductible. And since the town is paying 80% of the deductible, is it 80?
Yeah.
For the employee and then less for the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It would be disruptive change. And
You're
it's-
gonna make it more generous?
well, I don't know that there's a more generous plan when you factor in that we're contributing to the HRA 80% towards their deductible.
In terms of renewing the plan, we have to agree upon the percentage of the deductible that we pay. In terms of the employee share, that we don't have to decide necessarily, but the only other plan that maybe is a little better is a totally different network. So I feel like if we were to change, we should do that like earlier. Then in terms of the deductible utilization, for this current season, we're at 46% of the deductible for overall, for all staff on the plan. So we haven't, traditionally we pay under 50, there's 50% of the deductible that's used overall. Does that make sense?
Through the HRA. When you
Yeah.
even it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, we will pay up to 80%, but we're typically under 50.
Oh, you're saying just for the employees, not inclusive of family?
No, all the plans that we cover,
Okay,
in reality, it's less than 50% of the deductible.
our utilization of the HRA is less than 50%.
Yes.
Okay,
So
has that been consistent over the years?
no, it's 46 this year, so we're gonna be higher this year, 43% last year. 2022 was 52% and 2021 was 37%.
Do people like HRAs versus PPO?
The HRA,
Savings
It's
accounts,
it's
right?
our contribution.
no, the HRA is not the savings account,
That's the
that's FSA.
But it's
HSA or
kind of, you get, you get taxed
HSA is what
$3.
you pay.
No, I can explain it.
HRA
So,
is what we pay.
okay. I
Go
can
ahead.
explain it. FSA is the tax-free account. Any of our employees can do that. And HRA, health reimbursement account, that is a managed account that is the portion of the deductible that the town is paying. So we have a broad network, high deductible silver plan. So the monthly payment is lower than a low deductible plan, but then the town pays 80% of the deductible. So we pay the first 40%, the employee pays the middle 20, and then we pay the final 40. So we get billed anytime any of our employees go, or their families go to the doctor, they say, bill my insurance company, no matter what it is. Once they hit that first 40% of their deductible, then they get a bill. And once they've used that up, then, so it's managed, we don't have to manage it, it's managed by the insurance company. So, we are paying, every week, I sign off the checks for deductible expenditures. And then once people do 100%, then there's all that stuff that's just, that was what you were talking about, right?
So I see, single plan, an employee plus spouse, and then children and family plans.
Yes,
Are there different deductibles for employee plus spouse?
there's two, so they should be listed up at the top.
Yeah, it's individual and family.
It's individual and family.
But there's not a intermediate.
No,
Okay.
And family, is family flat regardless of how many children, or is it?
yes. And there's something special about each person. I'm gonna botch this, but each individual member of the family can use up their portion. So it's like a good thing, but I don't remember. Now I'm botching it.
The only thing I mean, we could discuss is expanding the HRA to do 80% employee and family.
Oh, we do.
I thought we did 80 of the employee. and
No,
50%
that's
family.
the premium payment.
Okay.
We're doing 80% of family plan.
Okay.
Yeah. The premium payment thing is the thing that I find really difficult to manage, but.
We pay 100, how much of the premium do we pay for employees?
So this is the one I was saying, we don't have to make this decision because it doesn't impact our renewal of the plan. But we currently pay 20% for the employee. And if you're hired after 2018, we only pay 50% for additional members. So anyone before 2018, it's 20%. Anyone after 2018, it's 20% for the employees portion and 50% for the family, which is not broken out billing. So we have to make special spreadsheets to do that.
The employee pays 20 and we pay 80% of the premium, or
Mhm.
yeah, okay.
Yep. Sorry,
And it's 50-50 after 2018.
for families, for the portion of the plan that's not the employee. So for example, I and my spouse are on the plan. The town pays 50% of my spouse's premium payment. And the town pays 80% of my premium, monthly premium.
And prior to that, it was 80 for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the highway department, it's 80 for everyone. In the collective bargaining agreement.
Everybody's happy, everybody likes it.
I mean, it's insurance.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah.
I think I've heard positives. I do think that the family plan costs for post 2018 employees is a big portion of their paychecks.
Yeah.
But you're saying we could opt to pay 80% of that for all employees, although that's also.
That's a
perk,
budget discussion, but
Right.
yeah.
But that's also a perk for longevity.
Yes, it is a longevity.
When does it kick in?
No, December 1st.
No, I mean like, with
2018.
people will never have that after 2018. Or
New
they have to,
employees after, new employees don't have that. Unless they're.
like, even if they
unless
reach
they're
a
not
certain
highway.
seniority. they-
Correct. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an idea though. So it would be a policy amendment,
Mhm.
but then we would want to look at that budgetarily. The other thing I was thinking about is if we figured out what the math was so that we're like, if you're an employee with a family, we pay 60% rather than the 20/50 thing. But it's just, we have to do
It's a
this
budget
special
thing, not a-
budget,
not a plan
but
thing.
yeah.
Do these plans like have lifetime limits when they stop paying out with chronic expensive?
No. Our dental plan does.
Well, yeah, every dental plan does.
My dentist said dental plan's not worth it.
Yeah, no, seriously, it's so.
So,
Sounds like a dentist. Have a great dentist.
yeah, I don't think so.
I like my dentist too.
In my experience, the coverage is good. Now, the annual deductible is going up a little bit next year. We don't have to make that decision, but for the budget, there's 1 month of next year's insurance that will be included in the budget. The plan costs are projected to go up 15%. For the next plan year, not this plan year, the next plan year. And it also, the deductible's going up. For our budget, I'm going to budget the same that we're doing the 20/80 split for the deductible. And I will budget for that plan, though we can totally like think about whether or not we want to do a whole revisit. But it would actually probably be helpful if we went ahead and authorized me to sign the plan agreement. Tonight, if you guys feel comfortable with that,
Yeah, resolution.
I forgot to put it on the agenda.
I think.
I
I'm
think
fine
she-
with that. I
yeah.
do want to revisit making that a little bit more generous for families in the future that we can get the budgetary stuff.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that this year too, for the premium costs.
Just things are just gonna get harder and harder.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll wing that resolution when we get the resolutions. But ADU, so presentation of local, I gave you guys printouts. This is the tax exemption for accessory dwelling units. I drafted it, Mary Lou put in her edits. I think I would ask you guys to take a look, and then we could schedule a public hearing on that at our October meeting. There's a law that basically kind of tells you what you're allowed to do. So it's basically
Okay.
what's in there. What this does is for the first 10 years of adding an accessory dwelling unit to your parcel, there's a reduction. You're exempt for a certain amount of time, and then there's a reduction of in paying the taxes on the improvement, the value of the improvement. So for the first 5 years, you're not paying any additional taxes for that. And this has actually come up. It is particularly for the school taxes, though. It is can be a hefty increase in how much taxes you're paying when you add an additional dwelling to your home. So this, to me, is a way of incentivizing the construction of accessory dwelling units. So,
Go for it.
all right. Councilman Coleman, would you like to talk about the next 2 items?
Yeah,
I'll help you out on the one, Michael. I have your answers, but didn't get them to you.
do you?
Yes.
Can you tell me your answers?
Yeah. Unfortunately, so far as changing the properties in each district, you have to redo the map, have another public hearing, pass subject to a permissive referendum. There's provisions for starting an ambulance district. There's provisions for extending an ambulance district. There are no actual provisions for
Changing.
swapping. So I think that the controller would probably read that as an extension. However, I have this other idea. You were going to look, or someone was going to look to see if Marbletown and KFAS both had certificates of authority for the entire town.
Yeah, I think both of them have a certificate of need that covers Rochester.
Okay,
I
so
need to confirm that with all the time, but I'm pretty sure they should.
perhaps what we could do, thinking outside of the box here, is find those properties that we would want Marbletown to handle and find those properties we would want Kerhonkson to handle. And then when we do the contracts, perhaps KFAS contract will be for, I think that one's called the Rochester, I don't even remember, the Rochester Ambulance District, and a portion of the Marbletown District, whatever we're calling that, and vice versa. The only glitch I see with that is in the taxing, because you tax by district, not by property.
Yeah.
So that's the glitch I see in that. Otherwise, it's a case of redoing those maps and having public hearings. It's resolution. It's not a local law. It's by resolution, but
And then subject to permissive.
Right,
Okay.
subject to permissive
I was trying
referendum.
to remember that. So we had a public hearing on the actual documents themselves that
Right, on
established,
the plan and the mapping.
but then passed them by resolution, subject
Right.
for referendum.
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, I have a few concerns and questions.
Can we back up and let the board know what we're talking about?
Yes. Well, when we established the two ambulance improvement districts, taxing districts, we made maps and a plan that included SBLs that essentially defined the parcels or portions of parcels that would fall
Members of
into
districts.
into each taxing district. And that was based off of data that was provided to us from the county showing where the coverage was for those districts. So we established those, and then, of course, you know, based off of what the request is from each respective squad, that amount gets divided up and assessed to the respective parcel owners. Right. So whatever was provided to us from the county did not align necessarily with how the squads are responding. And so there was a request that came, and both squads have been talking to one another to make some swaps. So there was something, so the section of Berm Road that's in the High Falls area, not Berm Road over here. One side was Marbletown, one side was Kerhonkson Act First Aid Squad, because that was how the county data showed it. And Marbletown was saying, well, we cover all of that, we get dispatched or should get dispatched to all of those. And similarly, Towpath, that said that they cover all Towpath, and it has to do with how close they are and how quickly they can respond. So there was a request to change this. And then I was reading through some of the questions, and then there were other questions about, well, shouldn't it be everything that's a High Falls address? And so I started looking at that in maps, and those parcels go way outside of what the county data showed us. So that's the first question is, can we, like, what's the justification if we're going to start moving these things around? And there's obviously tax implications associated with that. What are the implications of doing that? What do we need to do to make sure that we can back up the changes that we're talking about? The other question that Aaron and I were talking about was, it's not clear if the taxing districts themselves have anything to do with how county is dispatching, which I'm not sure, but there was a question about whether or not, and I need to follow up with squads, whether that it had changed where now people are being dispatched differently, which is a whole other problem that we have to clarify with the county. So I think the net result of this is inclusive of everything Mary Lou's talking about, and potentially needing to go through the mapping process, which was a nightmare because we were like splitting parcels. We need to figure out like what, I think, Mary Lou, what we can use as justification for making these changes because we are taxing. And B, if there's any implications in terms of how county is actually dispatching the people to respond to calls. So I need to contact county EMS and figure out if that has changed, and also the squads. And then we need to figure out what we can do in terms of changing the taxing districts, because I think ultimately we need both squads to agree. Problem one. Two, there's no guarantee that we won't have different people responding in the future. So just because these two squads meet,
I think it's so obvious. I mean, the parcels should be assigned to the first aid squad that is most able to respond.
and that's dispatched.
And I think that we should amend the boundaries to make that practicality a documented reality.
It's a lot of work for me.
Yeah, I don't know that you wouldn't be able to get that done this year, I don't think. Michael, could you double check with KFAS on their certificate of authority? Because for some reason, in my mind, going back to when we did this a few years ago, KFAS had, as you said last meeting, part of Warsing. They have most of Rochester. In my mind, they didn't have all of Rochester.
Well,
And that Marbletown had that one little piece, but that KFAS didn't have authority, and that's one of the reasons we used Marbletown and made the separate districts.
Well, there's Yeagerville, which is Warsing or Ellen Mill Rescue, I think is dispatched to Yeagerville because you can't get there easily. And then there's a little part that's in Rochester that's accessed from Marbletown, but I think the con for KFAS, and I will confirm this, still covers the entirety of the town. It just has to do with who's being dispatched. So I think
just for some reason in my mind, there was that one little piece that they did not cover, but that could have changed too. They could have, gotten a new certificate, or I could just be remembering incorrectly.
yeah, I think it had to do with dispatch, but I'll confirm that.
I mean, what's the practical fallout right now? Are people getting double served or not?
No, well, the impact. So we don't collect more taxes than what is budgeted for. So it's just how those taxes are dispersed among the parcels.
Okay.
So there's no difference in terms of the actual
Sure.
money collected. It has to do with how people are being assessed and what they're actually paying into it. So if we add a bunch of parcels to the Marbletown taxing district, people are going to be paying less, and people in the Rochester.
Okay, but the ambulances know where they're supposed to go right now.
Well, that's what I want to figure. They know where they're supposed to go. I want to make sure that county hasn't changed dispatch based off of something we did related to taxation.
No, well, my understanding of the reason why they came to us in the first place is because they're getting dispatched to places where it would,
outside of their district.
that the other, well, not even that, just that they're getting dispatched. And because of the way the roads are, there are areas of town where Marbletown could respond a lot faster than KFAS. And then there are other areas where KFAS could respond a lot faster than Marbletown. And that's where they talked about it. It had nothing to do with the taxing districts or anything. They just said, can you change this because we want to get dispatched first?
Yeah, so the question is, when we submitted our data to the county with all of the SBLs, did they then feed that in and it made a change to how people are paying dispatch?
Right,
So
but
I'm
we
gonna
based
confirm.
it on that, I thought.
Right.
But
We based it on that, but I don't know if that then made a change at the county
That
level.
carried over.
Yeah.
or if no change has happened in terms of the dispatch, but those particular properties finally needed someone to service them, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know, like,
Yeah, well, and then the other thing is, the town is able to specify who is providing service, so if it is, if they have made a change, we could correct that and then worry about taxing a piece subsequently, by correcting it in terms of the district. So I'll call Tara and Chuck and figure out what exactly the issue is.
Okay.
And then talk to Emily.
ongoing, great. Next.
Oh, yeah,
Is this ready for
I think so.
prime time?
Well, I don't know about prime time. I think it's ready to go to public hearing.
I have a comment on it. Sorry, because it's not clear to me and I'm an attorney. So I get that this alternate can be seated, basically whenever we need them at the at the chair's discretion. At the end where it says they can ask questions, but like they can't participate or something like that. I have a big pile of papers here, but Michael, if you have it right in front of you and you can read the change, that last part of the change, right,
Okay.
quicker than my finding it in my pile.
We weren't gonna do that.
We weren't going to allow them to participate in discussion. That
Or
was
ask question.
okay. Then we can change that.
Right, it said they can't participate in discussion, but they can ask questions.
We don't wanna do that. We
No.
decided last
Okay.
time.
Okay, thank you.
So we're just allowing them to sit at the table and look at the maps.
Observe.
So the new read of it would be alternate members can be seated with the regular members of the board at the discretion of the chairperson and shall not take part in the discussion of any application unless designated to substitute by the chairperson. However, alternate members can review maps and other materials.
Okay, so I'll format that.
Okay, so if they are
Fine,
going
question.
in as a substitute for another member, then they can participate in discussion
Right, if they're seated.
if they're seated. Okay, but they can sit at the table and like they used to do. Okay.
Are you saying we should specify that they can't have questions or they can't participate?
To remove ambiguity.
Alternate members.
What you could just do is a parenthetical after the participate. Such participation, including asking questions and communicating directly with applicants.
Oh, there's no participation. However, alternate members can review maps and other materials. But not,
I would put a parenthetical after participate, where you're specifying that participation is defined to include asking questions.
I don't have the word participate anywhere, so. Can participate by reviewing maps and other materials, but not.
Wait, read the whole thing again, sorry.
So alternate members can be seated with the regular members of the board at the discretion of the chairperson and shall not take part in the discussion of any application unless designated to substitute by the chairperson. However, alternate members can review maps and other materials. So we already say that they can.
Okay, I think it's kind of, it's backwards a little. First of all, when you say seated, that usually means they're seated as a substitute.
Mhm.
So maybe you can say that they're allowed to sit at the table and can be
Servers
seated as a substitute at the,
Alternate,
may sit at, alternate members may, at the invitation of the chair, sit at the table, but are not permitted to participate in the meeting
unless seated,
unless formally seated as a substitute.
right, substitute by the chair. And you might want to put that part about being able to review maps and applications at the beginning.
I wouldn't put it at the beginning, I would say, um. Alternate members may, however, review maps. And other materials.
Yeah, can they retain materials, like if there's a bunch of handouts, or just review?
They always,
Yeah.
they get the.
Okay.
materials, yes.
They always get a folder, right?
Yep, yeah.
Got very complicated now. Alternate members may, at the invitation of the chair, sit at the table, but are not permitted to participate in the meeting unless formally seated as a substitute. Do we need and shall not take part in the discussion of any application unless designated, like drop all that?
I would leave it just. To me.
Not permitted to participate in the meeting unless formally seated as substitute. And shall not take part in the discussion of any application. So then just remove unless designated as a substitute. That's redundant. However, alternate members
Members
may review maps and other materials. All right, shall I read one?
Read that again. I'm
I'll
sorry.
read it one more time.
All right.
Alternate members may, at the invitation of the chair, sit at the table, but are not permitted to participate in the meeting unless formally seated as a substitute. And shall not take part in the discussion of any application. And shall not take part in the discussion of any application. However, alternate members.
Okay, see, that makes, to me, that was kind of the problem I had in the first place. To me, that sounds like he can seat them as a substitute, but then they can't take part.
Alternate member.
If he seats them as a substitute, we want them to take part.
Yeah, that's an easy fix. When not seated by the chairperson, alternate members may review maps and other materials.
Okay. When,
Or just shove it up at the first part where they can sit at the table.
Right, that's what I was saying. Put that up
Put
at
at
the
the
first
table
one.
and review maps and other materials and shall not.
and review maps. But are not permitted to participate in the meeting unless formally seated as a substitute. And shall not take part in the discussion of any application.
No, then they would take part if they're seated as a substitute.
Unless,
I see.
yeah, yes. You need an unless in there.
Seated as a substitute and shall not take part in the discussion of any application. Unless seated.
Mhm.
As a substitute, so we don't mix up
As a
our
substitute
sit
by
and
the-
seated.
Unless designated, instead of seated.
Oh,
as
man.
designated. Instead of
That's-
seated as designated.
Well, that's what it says in the original law. It
Alternate
doesn't-
members may, at the invitation of the chair, sit at the table and review maps and other materials, but are not permitted to participate in the meeting unless formally seated as a substitute, and shall not take part in the discussion of any application unless seated as a substitute.
Instead of
Okay.
seated, I said designated by the chair as a substitute.
Yeah, somewhere you have to have that to be seated by, that it's the chair that determines whether they're seated.
Unless.
Well, seated or designated as a substitute.
If you'd like, if you're not going to schedule a public hearing tonight, if you'd like, I could just rework that and send it to everyone.
Sure,
Is that okay?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So in the interest of time, I don't think we should have oh, and I misstated this. I said aquifer protection recommendations. It's low well yield. I'm sorry. So the planning board, I think a month ago, we shared this letter from the planning board with you guys. They made some recommendations that basically just that the town board invest in looking at zoning changes that protect the low well yield areas. I think
And
that,
possibly do a study.
yes, right. So I think that we should do that. I don't think we need to discuss it. I think we've discussed a lot tonight. So that is something that we should put in our budget though.
You think we should do a study?
Mhm.
I think we should talk about it.
Okay, during budget time, I mean.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, is that cool?
Yeah, I mean, there's also a lot of grants available for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
Yes.
also always happy to have two board members come up with the plan and present it if you guys, anybody feels like. But this has come up a lot. I know we have had discussions about comp plan, changing the code. This question about low well yields and protections with subdivisions has come up a lot this year, and it's really challenging because the public wants the planning board to do something, and the planning board doesn't feel like they have what they need to do that in the code. So I would support, thinking about doing something to remedy that. If it seemed like we could, include something like that. So. Before we get into resolutions, I wanted to give some context to the amending the fee schedule for the planning board. Oftentimes people come before the planning board to have our site plan amendment. That's something would be in their original site plan decision or something in the code. So sometimes it's a huge thing, like they could be like doubling something, right? But sometimes it's something really, really minor and we don't have a fee for that. And so recently an applicant was told they needed to pay $500 for, to build a non-permanent structure. And I think I don't like making huge decisions based on one application, but I felt like given that this especially was ag, I spoke with the department and the planning board chair. He agreed and he said, look, set it at $100 for a site plan amendment. And if it's something that needs more review, then we'll charge escrow because they can always do that. So I thought that was fair because it allows, this particular one isn't going to have a public hearing. It's probably going to be a one meeting thing. Others might not have that, but they have the ability to charge escrow, but they have an original site plan and application that they would be going off of. So okay, that was the context for that. Just calendar review for town board items. I wanted to alert the board that we have our normal schedule of meetings in October, but in November, our business meeting is November 13th and our workshop meeting is November 6th. So we scheduled that and I wanted to do, after what happened last month, I wanted to do a better job of that.
What days are those? Days of the week?
Thursdays.
Oh, they're Thursdays.
This gets to the budget calendar. I put a budget calendar in the folder for you guys. Basically, tentative budget is due Tuesday, then it has to be presented to the board. We'll talk about that a little bit later after executive session. October is when we work on the budget to create the preliminary budget. The version of the budget that we scheduled the public hearing on is the preliminary budget. The public hearing for the preliminary budget has to be done on or before the Thursday after general election. That is November 6th. So at our next meeting, I would like to just schedule the preliminary budget public hearing for that meeting. So that we have it, it's noticed, we can put it on the calendar and it's done. Any questions? Okay. Also, we need to be working on the EMS contracts. Councilman Coleman and I are working on those. I just wanted to let the board know that we typically have been waiting until December to get started on that. We don't want to do that. So we are working on those and we'll hopefully have something to present to the board before December. But we've got a lot of input from our advisory committee on how to think about those contracts. K, community center equipment. We had budgeted to invest in some purchases for the community center yard back here. So there's no longer any playground equipment. We did install a fence. Councilwoman Smith will be coming to our next meeting with, well, the plan is that she'll be coming to our next meeting with, either a bid package proposal or a proposal if we could have something that's on state bid for the equipment. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. I don't have that now, but we are trying to get something installed for that. Then for other matters, I gave the board a copy of a town recycling policy that is an internal policy for staff. That did I only print out 3 of those? Maybe I was trying to.
Reduce.
Oh, no, I gave it to you. It's the papers, it was behind the ADU. It's in your right.
This is the planning board.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oops. All right. Well, it's just a recycling policy. I have 2. Basically, it follows county law, which requires recycling. And we ordered receptacles for all the areas of buildings. The reason why we're doing this is for the points in Climate Smart, sort of, but I also think that it is good to have a clear policy about recycling any recyclables in town. It's currently a little, like, we have a bin and we have someone that picks things up, but you know, whether or not people are self-sorting, I don't know. So this is kind of meant to be more like a guide, but it should be an adopted policy in order for it to be in Climate Smart. Tomorrow, we're going to review this with a couple members of the Climate Smart committee and get their input. And if they think it looks good, then we'll have it on the agenda on our next meeting, business agenda. We are also working on a document policy for open meetings law. With the Unicolab platform, we've learned that there's a lot of question about what should automatically be posted as a public document. And under open meetings laws, any document that's being discussed or adopted at a meeting is supposed to be available to the public. So we're trying to comply with that. I'm trying to comply with that myself for our meetings. And I just think it would be really helpful if we had a policy that answered all of the questions. So my clerk drafted a policy. I made some suggestions for what we needed. We're also going to a training on sunshine laws offered by the Association of Towns. Councilman Coleman and I are going, and I have 3 members of the planning board going. And I'm hoping that we'll learn some things there. But there's a lot of time being spent trying to figure out which planning board documents should be just put in a public folder versus put in a review section versus just kept as a record. And so this policy would cover everything not under FOIL. So this policy would kind of be like, yes, this gets posted, or this gets redacted, or public has to FOIL for this, right? And so we wanted to answer all of those questions so that board members and staff and then the public are fully aware of what we're putting out there. So we're hoping to get that soon just because there's a lot of disagreement among the planning board realm as to like how we should be using that platform. Kind of an unexpected problem. I admit, I did not expect this problem. I did it. So that's it. Unless any board member has other matters you'd like to discuss. Okay, moving on to resolutions. I'm gonna try to blow through these if you guys, unless you're sick of hearing me talk, but I can. I'll make a motion that the town board accepts the 9B of 2025 abstract and approves the payments in the following amounts. General fund for prepaid bills, $190.75. Unpaid bills is $48,515.78. Highway fund is $33,890.83. Zero capital fund. Street lighting fund is $237.50. And escrow is $555. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. I had a typo in my budget modification resolution. But I gave you those are the budget codes that we're gonna do. So, so we'll have to edit this resolution as I read it off.
Okay.
So, I'd like to make a motion that the town board approves the budget modifications as presented by the budget officer in the following. From budget code, and that's gonna be this, 8664.117, code enforcement building inspector, to reduce that line by $5,000. And add that to budget code 1420.441, attorney code enforcement. So the totals on that will be as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? That basically is for the litigation that we just did. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We're gonna table the appointment of the planning and zoning clerk till after the executive session. Then the next resolution, I would like to make that motion as presented, inserting the fee of $100 and taking effect immediately.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Then for the short-term transit rental cap, we're gonna have to edit this resolution, so. I'm just gonna do that real quick. And then I'll read it. Will you pull up the total number of units that we're using? Because I just wanted to put that in the resolution.
Total amount of.
That's in that spreadsheet, and we'll just put that
354.
440.
3549.
Never happening. I will remember. I don't believe.
There's an infinity of other numbers.
Shocked.
Okay. Okay, so it was 3540?
354.
Okay, all right. So there's just a couple of edits to this, Christina, and I can also show them to you afterwards. I'd like to make the motion that the town board, whereas the town board sets the cap each year of non-owner occupied short-term transit rental permits per the provisions in zoning code chapter 140-26A. And whereas the number of residential dwelling units has been determined to be 3,549 based on property assessment codes in the 2025 final assessment roll as presented by the town board. Then we're gonna skip the next, we're deleting the next section. Now therefore be it resolved that the total number of non-owner occupied short-term transit rentals shall not exceed 70 permits, inclusive of current permitted short-term, non-owner occupied short-term transit rentals. And in the event a current short-term transit rental permit holder does not renew, that permit shall be made available. Be it further resolved that the code enforcement office is hereby directed to administer the program in accordance with this cap and the applicable law.
Second.
Any discussion? Look at that. Okay, all right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Like everyone just lets yours pass through for 8,000.
Hmm?
My sentence
What?
for the planning.
But you weren't making a motion. Different, not apples to apples. Okay. I had circulated the parking ticket that I edited.
If you say it's okay, it's okay.
Well,
That's great.
we know how that goes. So this is the version that I made last.
Move that we adopt the version presented by the supervisor.
So, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. So now I'm gonna make a motion for health insurance plans. Are you ready? You have to write this. I'd like to make a motion that the town of Rochester Town Board authorizes the town supervisor to sign the renewal form for the MVP Silver 8 EPO medical plan and HRA funding in the established rates. And the monthly administration rate of $325 per plan member.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. I'm gonna also. We can do the others that, if you guys want.
Dental?
Yeah, I put that in there, but I'd like to do the traditional. Or the comprehensive option for the dental. Um. That. That one gives, double the amount of money and it, costs the same. So. You get more for the plan. They're the same. And the annual maximum is 2,000, not 1,500. So I just thought that was better. Though the deductible amount is higher. So. Actually. I think we should stick with the plan here. The deductible is doubled,
Which one were you comparing?
the traditional. With the. Comprehensive.
You're thinking stick with the traditional.
Yeah, just that deductible is double. So I have a couple other motions. One is the FSA limit to the maximum, so. I'll make a motion that the town of Rochester Town Board. Increases the FSA limit to the IRS maximum of $3,300.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries.
Do we get metrics on how many people are utilizing it?
What people do actually is they like plan it out. So they're using the whole thing, but yeah, I have all of that
Yeah.
data.
People are.
They get a 2.5 month grace period.
Yeah, it goes into like March. You can.
Yeah. Yeah. But most people, they're selecting what they want.
Well, yeah, you opt how much you want to.
Yeah. So I'd like to make a motion that the town of Rochester, allows, town board selects the anthem, the current anthem vision plan and allows the plan to auto renew.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain, motion carries. Any thought about that? I thought that comprehensive plan looked good, but, and it offers, orthodontics. So I was like, oh, that's nice, but the deductible is double.
Mhm.
We could maybe wait until our next meeting, so I could ask staff.
Let's look at it again. If we don't have to decide now.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask staff about that because of the orthodontics. It just seems, okay, so we're gonna table the dental. Okay. Perfect. That's all I've got.
Make a motion to enter into executive session at 8:58 PM. For matters leading to the discipline or removal of particular persons and matters regarding litigation.
Regarding the appointment.
Regarding the appointment of planning board clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries.
You're muted, Mary Lou, but I think you're saying goodnight.
Well, she's staying.
Oh, you're staying, so you're not saying goodnight.
No, I was saying you have to say what litigation.
Oh,
Ah,
we were gonna talk about the litigation of M&T against the town of Rochester. And
I'll update you on Ridgeview.
and the Ridgeview, the litigation involving 5 Ridgeview.
And I'm going to also update you because we have 2 tax certiorari cases.
so good, can I stop the stream now?
2 parts.
As long as you vote on that. We vote on that.
Do we have to vote?
S.
Vote on that motion as amended.
R-I. Like that.
Mhm.
It'll.
Can we vote on that?
Basis.
Okay.
Can we vote on that motion?
Okay, so we'll vote on the motion as amended. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed. I think we all.
Christina,
You got it, wait.
is this it or what, how do I?
No, the end the stream.